Hello, everybody. It is a beautiful evening here in Japan. Yeah, Diggs, I stole your intro. Let's go. Come on, bring it on. All right, so in all seriousness, let's talk about the news because we have both Japanese-sized news and global news today, and both of it is going to be interesting for the globalers. So go figure of all things, right? I mean, wow, global's just having a really exciting day. So before we get into the producer news, people might be wondering, hey, why aren't you streaming right now? And maybe you're not, but either way, I'm going to be streaming a little bit later this evening because the new banners come into effect tonight, and that's the first thing we're going to talk about, the new banners. Starting this evening, the new version of Leela will come out, as well as her event, which is a kind of a murder mystery, and we'll talk about that in a second. But really, talking about these banners really quickly, there seems to be this new banner here that opts to give you a total of 200 of her character shards for a total of 10,000 lapis. I'm not going to argue the merit of how much value you are getting off of the shards of this. It's just pretty good value for 10,000 lapis if you have the character, but you will notice here that there are no guaranteed URs. I do believe that this is free lapis. I don't remember seeing anything on here that says that it is paid. Well, there are misprints sometimes. But 200 shards is a lot to come out of here, and what's interesting is there is no 9-step. I kind of like the 9-step. Last month, just to divert again on a little bit of a tangent, but last month on stream, a lot of Japanese side players are complaining about tablets. Essentially, we don't have enough, or more correctly, we don't have enough sword and staff tablets. They run out really fast in the future. And the producer was quoted as saying, well, that's what the 9 steps are for. Okay, there's no 9 steps now. What are we supposed to do? Anyway, you'll also notice that there is no coins off of these banners. Again, I feel that this is essentially a Hail Mary to try and get this character. I mean, it is 200 shards, so you're at least walking away with something if you think about how much it costs to get 200 shards. I say 2,000, 200 shards. That's, you're essentially getting some value off of this, but I question it. As for other ways to get this character, looks like this is back again, the 4,500 paid lapis, for a higher chance to potentially get her, but only if you're looking to pay money, which I am not right now. And other than that, there really isn't any other options for this character. There's no 9-step or anything like that, so me right now, I'm kind of pretty much against this, and I do believe that scrolling back up, that this 5-step thing, I do think it's only one time, which is not great. Feels like I would prefer the return of the 9-step to whatever this is, at least initial reactions. All right, now let's get on to the producer live letter, and the producer live letter for this month is interesting. First of all, currently, the management team is discussing the future update plans and event plans for the 3rd anniversary. That's great. We haven't even got to the 2.5 anniversary this year. And is steadily preparing its implementation. Among them, based on the voices we've received from users over the last year, we are planning to increase the number of projects that will allow you to enjoy Wotv. Fantastic. Looking forward to January 1st. We're planning various things, so it's nice to know that they have plans and are planning on improving things. Great. All right, now let's get into the interesting thing that's actually worth your time. So, Master Ability 2s for this month. First of all, Whisper will be getting hers, as well as the Wazette and Severo for the 2nd week. I honestly don't know what to expect here. Whisper is not in any discussion whatsoever, so we'll see if any of these characters can really do anything, but Severo is probably the most interesting because I think the water selection quest would just be easier with it. Next up, week 3 is Valentine Saria, or Thalia, or the translation works out. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. This is actually the one thing I really want to talk about, is the fact that I don't know if Global's going to get this. This is going to be really interesting because otherwise it could put her in a really weird spot for the rest of the year, where essentially she comes back on Global for the Valentine's event, misses her Master Ability 2 because Master Ability 2s are not a thing yet on Global. And then it's a weird, awkward spot for her for the rest of the year, unless they're planning on bringing her banner back at some time, or they're just going to shove her Master Ability 2 in some of the upgrade pools. I mean, it's more attuned for the JP side, but Global's definitely been feeling a little bit more of a power creep. So this Master Ability 2 should be really interesting for Globalers to know how good this character will get it. And secondly, whether or not they're going to get it. So I do think that week 3 is going to be really interesting, but it also confirms what we basically already knew, that we're going to be getting a Valentine's Day unit. And for everybody who was complaining or commenting, there's a difference, about the fact that Leela is getting a 3rd version, wait till you see the new version of Valentine Venera this year, who is going to be pregnant Venera. Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to leak that data yet. All right, but jokes aside, and how potentially inappropriate this year's Valentine's unit may end up being, boy, I'm going to feel real bad if I called that one. Anyway, next up, it's going to be like Wedding Venera or something like that. But anyway, week 4, nothing but mid-tier characters. So other than outside of Selection Quest, really not going to be worth talking about. Durando Schultz and Vistral. Don't think there's really anything else worth talking about there. Next up is the Selection Quest. Dark will be getting improved, so we're just continuing down there, down the list. And from there we have Halloween, or not Halloween Leela, not regular Leela, but Detective Leela. I haven't really thought of a good name for her yet. But yeah, we have a new one and a brand new event, a kind of murder mystery. So that's actually kind of a fun idea, and I'm totally okay with it. And needless to say, Porcelain Tower will also be coming back in the near future, so I'm excited for that. All right, so that's essentially the JP news, such as it is. Very nice. Let's move on to Global, which had a little bit of a surprise tonight, which was a brand new character. And yeah, there's quite a few. First of all, let's just get the obvious thing out of the way. More the Merrier is the worst name for a Wotv character ever. There, I said it. That's the hot take. You can argue that there's lots of bad names in Wotv, but this is the worst name ever. It's based on a pun. It's a horrible play off of Moore, who's actually a character I like. And I really hope that whoever thought of this, I don't know, if they stubbed their toe or something like that, because Jesus, this is just an absolutely awful name. Square Enix Global, Gumi Global, whoever's behind this, why? Oh God, don't buy this character, Globalers. We're just going to get that right out of the way. All right, but in all seriousness, 90 cost character is interesting. Wind Element is interesting. I'm curious about how this character will actually look outside of what initial details they've already given. First of all, Apocraccuracy is a brand new job class, and it is a fist job class as well. Looks like she is an entirely magic focused character, which is interesting because JP variants seem to usually flip the character from magical to physical, not always, but usually. Whereas global variants seem to keep the same. Okay, all right. But yeah, keeping in much of the same way as Garvel, who came before her, this is going to be another fist magic user. And it's been a long time since we've seen some of those, so that's pretty cool. Should be a little concerning, though, for Globalers, because this could mean like a special character now and a special character at Valentine's, and also you still have Crystal Warrior characters and Final Fantasy VI and Persona characters coming up. So there's a lot of stuff, and we're going to talk about my expectations of this character pre her banner coming out, what I think, if she's actually worth it or not. So Apocraccuracy, we can't really talk too much about that just yet. Rune Knight and Time Mage, though. Time Mage is really good for support. She'll probably get a few offensive spells, haste, maybe quicken if we're really lucky, and I think that's pretty reasonable expectations. Rune Knight has a lot of offensive capabilities to it, and some potential self-healing, so that's really nice too. Now, she is a 90 cost character, and I'm not saying 100%, but I am curious whether, like Celeste, she's a pseudo 100 cost character. We see these all the time, where they're at a lower cost, which is good for limited cost events. But really, the real thing to take note is that, I mean, it could be a level 100 cost character. And we'll get to Wind in a second as an element. What else? Now I guess we need to talk about Apocraccuracy as much as we can. Interesting. Let's just go through the abilities step by step. So first of all, Limit Burst deals large damage to targets on range. Based on the caster's magic stat, chance of inflicting silence for 3 turns. Additional effects, lowers area attack resistance when silenced. Next up, Divine Toxicology. Interesting term there. Deals damage M to targets within range based on caster's magic stat, chance of inflicting poison for 3 turns. Additional effect, lowers defense, spirit, and healing power while poisoned. Okay, really interesting. We'll come back to that. And last but not least, Life of Longevity. Really fit with the other two, doesn't? Restores re-raise on self, allows unit to automatically blah 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 blah. Additional effects raise magic healing accuracy rate while re-raise is in effect. Now, thoughts from a JP side player based on what the current meta is. Wind is still pretty much in use because of 2B, Tifa, and Joom. Barush is non-existent on the JP side. He doesn't appear, nobody uses him, and that's just the way it is. We've had plenty of opportunities to get him, he's just not a character who shows up. Halloween Leela on JP side is used, and is used to a pretty big amount, still in higher level teams that are not any of the other elements that are being used. So essentially Halloween Leela mostly just put with mainly wind elemental teams, though I have seen her in a splash of water, in other words, so with Story and Celeste, and that end up working out pretty good for those teams. Now, thinking about how this unit works, first of all, chances of landing debuffs should be pretty high. I think that is generally pretty good. Because she gets quite a few bonuses from casting status effects on characters or even on herself. Now, do I think re-raise is really that valuable? Not depending on her HP. That's my question right now. Whether or not she actually has a lot of HP. If you run her as Rune Knight, then she's going to be potentially self-damaging sometimes if she has, Hazard Slash or whatever. And that could make her much more brittle and much easier to kill. If you're running her as Time Mage, well, then she's mostly support, and she doesn't necessarily have the healing from Rune Knight, although she might have some more healing in her main kit. That's something I'm kind of questioning. I do believe I remember hearing from the video that her TMR gives her Shell, and Shell also gives her a bit of a bonus. So she's kind of like Astoria light, and I really do mean that light because I'm not convinced about how much damage this character is going to be doing. And again, put a pin in that. But I want to come actually talk about Divine Toxicology first, because that ability is a poison ability, and one of the more recent tools on the JP side that is really synergistic with poison is the new Esper Chaos Odin, who is a very powerful, very quick Esper that supports poison-based units really nicely. His Limit Burst causes poison, or the summon attack causes poison, and he gives a higher chance to cost poison. And first, please don't pay attention to the fact that I have not spent SP yet on my to-do list, and it keeps getting pushed to the bottom. So, but this Esper, first and foremost, is a physical unit. It's not necessarily a magical unit. It falls a little bit shorter in the magical category, and it's mostly a slash unit, which doesn't either synergize whether this unit is fist-based classified attacks or magic-based attacks. Which way her kit will land 100%. It looks like most of them are classified as magic, but some of them might be classified as a little bit different damage types. Preemptively, She might have good synergy with Odin. My question is whether or not is on two fronts. Odin is primarily an evasion esper, so I'm really curious about whether this character has anything in her master ability or in her primary kit that focuses on evasion, because wind can kind of do evasion. It can do evasion with 2B, it can do it with Tifa, and I wonder if this could be the third unit in that party. Maybe. Not entirely convinced at this point. Would need a lot more. Light does evasion and does evasion a lot better. Now, taking the flip side of her coin, or the flip side of her kit, seems that she has a little more focus on accuracy. That's really good for the global side right now. Light evasion is also a problem over there, so whether this unit or not can really survive against light evasion on the global side will be really important, and whether or not she can have a really accurate way of dealing with evasion units, that's probably where her major focus is going to be. So the really two big question marks on whether this unit is good or not is accuracy and evasion, because both of those things she could potentially have some good synergy with stuff that will be coming out in the future. But I don't know. I honestly don't know if there's enough there to support either one. Wind already has kind of a good accuracy card, so it might just be enough. But if she loses re-raise, does she lose enough of her accuracy that it's going to be problematic? What else does she have in her kit? Is she primarily going to be a healer? Is she going to have the AI of a healer or the AI of a damage dealer? It seems like most of her attacks are either buffs or damage dealing attacks, which makes me very doubtful that she might be a good support / healer. She might actually just focus on other things, and whether or not Life of Longevity is going to be a huge priority in her kit, or whether Time Mage is going to be. There's a lot of questions about this character, and honestly, I mean, besides the name, I just don't think it's necessarily worth jumping in. Now, first of all, with 90 cost, I expect her to be easier to be gotten. However, Global has been pretty shitty with its banners lately, and that would not surprise me if that continued here too. Even with her being a 90 cost character, they're just gonna be like, oh, well, we made this a, well, she's a Lunar character, so we made it a little bit more difficult to get her. Fantastic decision making. Honestly, if she came out right now on the JP side, I would say no, for a couple of reasons. One, Wind is already in a pretty good spot, and magically I wouldn't be too terribly excited pre-vision card discussion. So we have to talk about that, and we will be talking about that in just a second. Her basis on status effects is interesting, because status effects are one of the blind spots still of a lot of characters. I mean, there's way to potentially protect against status effects, but it's not the easiest thing, and especially not in auto. So this character could very much cleave a way into the kind of meta via a kind of Agrius of just doing status effects and being a real pain in the butt because of that. Wouldn't surprise me at all if that's one of the ways she ends up being really good. If she doesn't land status effects, she loses a lot of her capability, and that is worrying, but she's a magic-based character, so she should have high faith and a pretty high success rate too. Whether Chaos Odin is necessary for her in the near future to really accelerate at dealing some of her, poison status effects, don't know. We'll see. I just have a lot of question marks about this character. Global exclusives are usually pretty damn strong. Usually. But if this character came out on the JP side right now, I would say more than likely no, because we're not short on DPSs right now, and unless somebody really proved to me that she can handle evasion teams, which are still a common thing. And the other thing is, of course, the elephant in the room, Celeste and Celeste's future. And I know, going back again to who we were talking about at the beginning of this video, Diggs doesn't necessarily believe in the Church of Celeste, but taking a look at her kit, and this will be another thing, is her magic reflectable? If it is, then most of her kit doesn't work against Celeste. Her Limit Burst will, more than likely, because Limit Bursts are not reflectable, which means that she can cast Silence on Celeste, which is good. Silencing Celeste removes some of her kit and makes her weaker, so that is totally strong. Wind is also kind of a blind spot for Celeste because if you're running Ochu, she loses a little bit of wind resistance, so this character, again, might be pretty good in that effect. The thing is that even if you silence Celeste, it doesn't solve the problem of what Celeste can do. Celeste will still absorb magic attacks, and here's kind of the double-edged blade of this character. If she silences Celeste, Celeste may not have really much in the way of attacks to do, and she just may use her support skills more, making her tankier, making her potentially recast her magic barrier sooner, making your mages less useful. So yeah, that makes me worried. Now let's talk about the vision card. The vision card giving Man Eater up is really nice upon magic attacks. That's a lot of support for wind magic. Great. Halloween Leela likes it, Varush likes it. That's fine. HP up, also good. Earth attack resistance up, a little unfair, but I guess we're just leveraging it. Also a much better name on the vision card. Looking at the limited bestowed effects, AP cost down rate for more just kind of ups the cost of this character, because essentially that tells me that more has pretty high AP costs, probably, to have the vision card be more necessary. Create a problem, sell a solution. So you're going to need the card, and you're going to need the character, and you're going to need both maxed. Characters, that's not surprising, but vision cards in this point is going to be a little more annoying. Also gives an accuracy up. Again, we need to see the total amount of accuracy, but wind could be an interesting assortment to going up against, what's it called? The light element and its evasion, which is much. So last but not least, talking about the composition of the wind elemental team, you could just run Joom and, for instance, Halloween Leela. You could run with a partially physical team. You could potentially run her as a support unit in the back. It really is a lot of questions. So here's my thing for globalers. This is my advice about the more the merrier banner. First of all, check out the banner. Don't plan on pulling for this character until you see what the banners and the pity looks like, because that on global lately has just been kind of shit. All right, second of all, talking about this character in general, I would literally let someone else take the lead or test the friend unit out for a couple of days before you really decide on this character. There's no pre-existing data. Wind magic is not a thing. If wind magic is a thing currently on the JP side, it's Halloween Leela only. And like Howlett's 120 did not work for him. And I don't think that vision card would really have helped him all that much. Neither would Varush. Neither of those two characters have really made a difference, so I'm not super excited. There are probably more Varush fans, though, that probably want to try and make him work, in which case Windmore is better. But I do think that there is a wind elemental team, either potentially maybe an evasion team with 2B and Tifa, or a nice defensive team with Joom and another magic character. It just, remember, whenever you're building mages, this has to be questioned about Celeste. So I would really, really, really get some global player. Diggs, this is a challenge to Diggs, Orange A, or Rindell, any of you global players out there. When she comes out, get a friend unit, go test her against Carbuncle or anywhere where Reflect is capable, and see which of her skills actually are reflectable and which ones are not. And that will tell you the value of this character. Because every mage in the future has to be put through the current mage tank test to see if they're really, really good enough. Because it might be good enough to kill light evasion, but there are scarier things out there that could become more common in the future. We'll see. So long video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I brought some insight, but honestly, I would definitely be careful about spending this on this character with just so much stuff coming in the future. And of course, the Valentine's Day unit, which will be coming in a couple of weeks, is another big question mark that we just don't have answers to yet, even on the JP side. Although it's probably Venera, because, you know, if Leela's getting her for 3rd version, then I guess it's time for Venera to get her 3rd version. I hope it's not Bridal Venera. Thanks for watching. See you next time.